Hi, my angels, and welcome back to Angel Baby Speaking. Now, today I really want to talk about something that I see constantly in the law of assumption and manifestation space, especially this week with some of my clients. So, if you have ever thought, I had a really bad day, did I just mess everything up? Or I'm so anxious, I'm creating the opposite. Or I'm so emotional, am I blocking my manifestation? Then this video is for you because I want to say this very clearly from the beginning. Your emotions are not ruining your manifestation. And believing that they are is actually what is keeping you stuck. So, today I'm going to break this down using law of assumption, neuroscience, and nervous system regulation so you can finally stop being afraid of your own inner world. Now, in law of assumption, creation does not happen through emotions, it happens through assumptions. Now, an assumption is what you repeatedly return to as true about yourself, other people, relationships, money, and life. Because emotions are simply temporary states. Now, assumptions are identity level beliefs because you can still feel anxious and at the same time assume I am chosen. You can cry all you want and you can still assume things always work out for me. You can have a really low day and still be able to live from the end because the law of assumption never required emotional perfection. It required identification with an outcome. Now, most of the time, people are not stuck because they're emotional. They are stuck because they're afraid of being emotional. So, let's talk about what emotions actually are. Now, from a neuroscience perspective, emotions are chemical responses in the nervous system. They are created when your brain perceives safety, threat, or familiarity because emotions are not commands, they are not predictions, and they are not creations. Now, if you sit with yourself, you will understand that most emotions naturally pass within 60 to 90 seconds unless we assign a meaning to them. So, this is actually huge because your body might be feeling fear or sadness or anxiety, but it's really your interpretation and your attachment to that emotion that is going to give it power. So when people say, I feel so anxious, so something bad must be happening, that's not manifestation, that is conditioning. Now, I like to explain this to my clients like this. I want you to think of your nervous system like a toddler. So, if a toddler throws a tantrum and every single time you just give them a sucker, they now learn and associate when I freak out, I get something. So now this tantrum becomes louder, it becomes more frequent, it becomes more intense. And it's not because this toddler is bad or because they're doing anything wrong. It is simply because they now learned an association. And manifestation works the same exact way. So if every single time you are feeling anxious, you go and check the 3D, you're overly affirming and trying to repeatedly get this emotion out, you're seeking reassurance, or you're spiraling, trying to find proof, your nervous system now learns that panic is so important. So the panic is going to keep showing up more and more. And this doesn't mean that this is the point where you suppress any of your emotions. It's actually where you're going to start decoupling emotion from meaning. Because regulation is not about forcing this positivity, it's truly about letting emotions move without narrating your future. Because you can say, even though I feel so anxious right now, I know I'm still safe. Or I feel this fear in my body and this is still unfolding for me because this emotion doesn't get to decide my outcome. Now, especially I feel like after watching Inside Out, I feel like all of my emotions are just these super precious gems and they're just signaling to me when something coming up. And I think this is really a key point in manifestation because your manifestation is always going to respond to what you return to, not what you may feel once or something you might not feel all the time, because your identity creates your reality, not your moods. And I really want to explain why emotions themselves aren't creating because this is where a lot of people get confused. And this was something I felt I was even stuck on for a little bit. So, the biggest takeaway that I found was emotions don't create your reality. The stories that you keep returning to is what is creating. So, emotions simply amplify our awareness. And when you are emotionally elevated, whether you're anxious, you're scared, you're excited, your attention gets very, very, very sharp. So, whatever story you're telling in that moment, it is now going to be completely highlighted. And with a lot of people that I've worked with, I feel a big thing they say is, I felt really intense emotions, or I had a spiral or a breakdown, and then something really bad happened. And the first thing that they do is they assume that the emotion caused it. But what actually happened is the emotion just spotlighted an assumption that was already there, something that was already very active within them. So, most emotional reactions belong to an old identity. They are simply just echoes of past beliefs, and they are not predictions of the future. And 9 times out of 10, it's not your intuition. So when fear comes up, it's not because something bad is being created, it's because something old is genuinely being released. There is a certain perspective of an older version of you that we are wanting to change. Because manifestation doesn't respond to emotional spikes, it responds to repetition, it responds to what you return to as truth about yourself. Because you don't manifest from a bad moment, you manifest from the identity you are consistently living from. Emotions are meant and allowed to pass. Stories are what we need to change because your emotions are not creating your future, your interpretation of them is. So, I have a success story because this past week I worked with a client who had a major emotional blow up with her SP on New Year's Day. Full argument, full nervous system collapse. She was absolutely convinced she had ruined everything. But what I really highlighted to her was the problem was never the fight. The problem was her belief that her emotions were creating damage. So she was always saying things to me like, well, every time I get emotional, my SP is so mean to me, or he ends things, or he runs away. And she was trying to override her feelings the whole time, snapping at her thoughts, telling herself no, forcing herself to really persist, and it just wasn't landing. And then later, after a session, she finally had a breakthrough because she realized she wasn't being firm, she was being very harsh. She was talking to herself the same way she felt her SP was talking to her. So the moment that she finally softened, that was the moment she realized, I have been so mean to this scared little girl inside of me. And that is when everything was able to fully shift because it was never the emotion pushing her SP away. It was the way she abandoned herself inside of that emotion. So once we were able to really regulate her nervous system and separate this I feel fear from this means it's over, everything was able to shift because she stopped spiraling, she stayed embodied, and she returned to her identity. She didn't need to keep fixing the situation. She needed to stop abandoning herself inside of it. So now she's moving in with her SP at the end of February, and I'm so, so, so excited for her. Congratulations. I know that was well worth it. I also, too, had another client this week have the same emotional breakthrough, and I just can't wait for her results either because I know that they are coming. So, the biggest revelation this week that I've been having with clients is that the emotions didn't block the manifestation. The self abandonment was the core identity that kept being reflected back to them. And this is something that I have definitely lived to because for me, it was every time that I felt super excited or happy about something, I would immediately tell myself, don't get too happy because something's about to drop. Or I would just downplay every single good thing happening, almost as if I was bracing for this come down and something bad to happen. And sure enough, the people that I cared about would always mirror out that exact energy, always minimizing me, interrupting me, or taking the spotlight, telling me I'm too much, or they'd even pull back fully from our relationship. And I had to finally sit with myself and realize it is not because my excitement is too intense, but because I was teaching myself it was not safe to be fully expressed. So once I did that, my reality shifted as well. So I want you to ask yourself, what if your emotions were safe? What if they weren't dangerous? What if you knew for a fact your emotions did not have the power to take away anything from you? And if you knew that your emotions weren't creating outcomes, that only your identity was, how would you respond to fear when it shows up? Would you rush to fix it? Would you be judging yourself so harshly for it? Or would you meet yourself with compassion and being considerate instead of panic or trying to get rid of this feeling altogether? How would you really treat yourself in those moments? Because the moment that you truly stop fearing your inner world and see you are speaking to every single version of yourself, that is when manifestation stops feeling like pressure and you can finally allow your inner world to be the world that you trust the most. Because emotional regulation is not about anything, it's simply about staying present long enough for your assumptions to do their job. So I want to end this with my tapping rounds. You guys know I love my tappings. And if you want to, you can tap along or you can just listen and just really let this land because I know this is going to give a major breakthrough for all of you watching. So, karate chop point. Even though every time I feel anxious, sad, or triggered, it feels like the opposite of what I want starts showing up. I still deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. Because even though I've learned to really fear my emotions, because it just feels like the moment I feel bad, everything goes wrong. I choose to feel safe in my body right now. And even though I've been watching every single thought and every single feeling so closely, worried that I'm just messing this up, the second something heavy comes up, I'm now open to releasing that fear. Because even though every time I feel emotional, I'm scared I'm ruining everything, I choose to be gentle with myself right now. And even though I learn to snap at myself, perfect myself, or even quiet myself down when I'm feeling anxious or needy, I'm open to hearing and comforting that part of myself differently now. Because even though I've been so afraid that my emotions push people away, that my emotions push money away, I am choosing to feel safe in my body again. For the eyebrow point. So, this fear that when I feel too much, everything just goes wrong. Okay? This habit of being so harsh with myself when I'm scared. This belief that I have to shut myself down in order to get what I want. The way that I talk to myself when I feel anxious or doubts really start coming up. Telling myself I'm just too much, too emotional, or too needy. No wonder my nervous system feels unsafe. And so do my manifestations coming to me. Because I've been treating myself the way that I fear others will treat me. So, what if I don't need to fight myself anymore? What if my emotions are just asking for reassurance in order to be released? What if I don't need to snap at myself or overcorrect or suppress anything? What if I could just stay with myself instead of always abandoning myself? I can feel scared and still be loved. I can feel emotional and still be chosen and supported. I can feel anxious and still receive an abundance of money because my emotions don't push things away, my self attack does. I choose to be kind to myself when I need it most. So I'm letting go of this fear that my emotions create the opposite, this panic inside every time I feel off, sad, anxious, or uncertain. I'm letting this panic go. This belief that if I feel bad, something bad will happen. This pressure to always control my thoughts and emotions so I don't lose what I want. This exhaustion from constantly monitoring myself. This fear that my emotions are dangerous. This belief that I have to stay calm or positive to be safe. All of this tension I've been carrying around, feeling wrong. I let it go. I let it go. I let it go. Take a deep breath. Because what if my emotions aren't creating outcomes? What if they're just releasing old identity patterns? What if feeling fear doesn't mean I'm going backwards? What if my old emotions belong to an old identity and an old story, not the new one? What if I don't have to actually fix or suppress anything? What if I can feel this and still be in a healthy relationship? What if I can feel this and still receive money? What if I can feel this and still get exactly what I want? I allow my emotions to do their job. I don't need to keep attaching meanings to them anymore. I let every emotion move through me without rehearsing the old story. I don't need to spiral for protection anymore. I choose to stay with myself instead of abandoning myself. My identity is stable even when my emotions fluctuate. Because my manifestations are not fragile. I am safe to feel and still receive. Okay, take a deep breath. Okay, your emotions are not canceling your manifestations. They're simply just completing old cycles. Your SP is not responding to today's fear. They're responding to the assumptions you've already lived from. So, money is not reacting to a bad moment, it's responding to the identity that you just keep returning to. So when you regulate, when you stop rehearsing the old story, you realize you are allowed to be human and you are allowed to still have every single thing that you desire. So if you notice that maybe every time you feel emotional, your reality mirrors coldness, distance, or instability, then this is your invitation to look inward to relate to yourself more gently. Now, this is exactly what I teach inside my containment method on how to feel deeply without spiraling, self abandoning, or rehearsing the old story. So, if emotions have felt like the hardest part of manifestation for you, this course is definitely for you because you don't need to be emotionless in order to have everything you desire. You just need to feel safe with yourself first. Now, I really created this course for people who were like me and you fully understand the law, but you might need help staying regulated enough to actually live it. Now, it's already helped so many people stop self abandoning and start receiving without force because you don't need to overpower your emotions. You just need somewhere safe to hold them. Now, I'll link that course below if you are interested. And I just know that this video really created an aha moment for you. And until next time, my loves.